Chapter 1: The Unintended Beginning. It all started in the way that most forbidden things begin, quietly, without warning. I had never imagined this would happen to me, especially not with him. And certainly not with him being my sister's boyfriend. But life, in its twisted sense of humor, has a way of throwing the unexpected at you when you least expect it. It wasn't as if I'd been looking for love, or even considering it. At 22, I had always been focused on other things: my studies, my friends, my work. That is, until one night, I noticed him for the first time. I had met Jack before, of course. He had been around for as long as I could remember. He was the charming, athletic type, the kind that every girl seemed to swoon over. But I had always dismissed him, not because he wasn't attractive, but because he was my sister's boyfriend. I knew better than to allow myself to even entertain such thoughts. There was a line, an invisible boundary, that I was never supposed to cross. But on that particular evening, everything changed. He had come over to our house to pick up some things for a weekend trip with my sister, Emma. As usual, I found myself reluctantly roped into their conversation. Emma, oblivious to the tension that seemed to surge between Jack and me, was sitting on the couch, excitedly talking about their plans. I tried to focus on her words, but something about Jack's laugh, his eyes, the way his body moved, made it impossible for me to pay attention to anything else. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about his eyes, the way they seemed to linger on me just a little longer than necessary. I thought it was my imagination at first, but as the days passed, I started to realize I wasn't imagining it. Jack was looking at me differently. And I couldn't deny that I was looking at him the same way. Chapter 2: The Confession. Over the next few weeks, I found myself doing everything I could to be around him. I would go to the gym just to catch a glimpse of him, make excuses to hang out at the coffee shop where he worked, or offer to help him with things that had no real purpose. It was all a blur, desperate, out-of-character behavior that was so unlike me, I didn't recognize myself. I was falling for him, and the worst part was that I couldn't stop. One evening, Emma had invited me to a party, and of course, Jack was there. The party was in full swing, but all I could do was stare at him from across the room. The air between us was electric, charged with the kind of tension that neither of us could deny anymore. At one point, he walked over to where I was standing, his smile warm, but his eyes filled with something else, something dangerous. It was then that he whispered in my ear, "I can't keep doing this." I froze. The weight of his words sank in slowly, like stones in a pond. I turned to face him, my heart racing. "What do you mean?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. Jack took a deep breath, his gaze flickering between my face and the floor. "I can't be with her anymore. I've tried, but it's not you." His voice broke slightly at the last part, and the words echoed in my mind. "It's not me, Jack," I replied, my voice a whisper. "It's never been you." Chapter 3: The Descent. After that confession, things between us changed. We found secret moments, whispers in dark corners of the house, stolen glances when Emma wasn't looking. We were careful, always aware of the lines we were crossing, but that only made it more exciting. More forbidden. I could tell that Jack was torn. He still loved Emma, I knew that. But there was something between us that neither of us could ignore. And in those stolen moments, I felt it too. The passion, the desire, the deep longing that had been building between us for weeks. It felt right, even though it was so wrong. One night, when Emma had gone to stay with a friend, Jack and I were alone in the house. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet that makes everything seem louder, the way our breaths became faster, our hearts racing as we stood in the living room, inches apart. "I don't know how we got here," Jack murmured, his eyes searching mine. "I don't either," I whispered back, my voice trembling. "But I can't stop." And that was when it happened. He kissed me, softly at first, like he was testing the waters, but then deeper, more desperate, like he was afraid of letting go. Chapter 4: The Breaking Point. Our affair continued in secret. The guilt gnawed at me constantly. I loved my sister. I had always admired her for her strength, her kindness. But in the back of my mind, I kept hearing Jack's confession over and over, "It's not you." And every time I heard those words, I found myself justifying my actions, convincing myself that it was okay. That we were meant to be. But even as we grew closer, the guilt never fully disappeared. I saw the way Emma looked at Jack. Her eyes full of love and trust, and I couldn't help but feel like a monster. I was betraying her in the most intimate way possible. It all came crashing down one fateful evening. Emma came home early from a weekend trip, and there we were, Jack and I, tangled up in the mess we had made. Emma stood in the doorway, her face pale, her eyes wide with disbelief. The silence was suffocating, and for the first time, I felt a pang of genuine regret. What is this?" Emma's voice cracked, her tears beginning to fall. "How could you do this to me?" I couldn't speak. I had no words to defend my actions. Jack stepped forward, but Emma turned away from him, running out the door before he could stop her. Chapter 5: The Aftermath. The weeks that followed were a blur of guilt, shame, and heartbreak. Emma didn't speak to me. Jack and I tried to salvage what was left of our relationship, but the truth hung between us like a shadow. I had taken something from my sister that could never be returned, and no matter how hard we tried, we couldn't fix what was broken. The worst part was seeing the emptiness in Jack's eyes. He wasn't happy. Neither of us were. The love we had was tainted, and I could see that he regretted what we had done. But it was too late. Once the damage was done, there was no going back. One evening, Jack came to see me. His eyes were dull, and his shoulders slumped with defeat. "I can't do this anymore," he said softly. "I thought I could, but I can't live with this." I didn't cry. I didn't beg him to stay. I knew it was over. We were both broken, and there was no healing from what we had done. Chapter 6: The End. Jack left that night. Emma had already left the house weeks ago, staying with our parents. We were both alone now, separated by the one thing we could never undo, the love I had stolen from her. In the end, I didn't get the happy ending I had fantasized about. I had stolen him, but I had lost myself in the process. I had hurt the one person I cared about more than anything. And Jack? He was gone, lost to me and lost to her. The silence in the house was deafening. I sat alone, in the place where it all started, and realized just how much I had destroyed. I had stolen him, yes. But in the end, I had lost everything that mattered. The end.